Okay, welcome everybody to the December FileMaker Pro User Group chapter. We're gonna kick things off here in the holiday season. So Merry Christmas, and all those good things. Happy Hanukkah, all the fun stuff that's happening this time of year. Hope you guys are having a good time with all that too. We have Jeremy's going to be giving us a presentation on JavaScript. He's from Florida. He's going to give us a virtual presentation this month, but he's going to come here next month to do the second part. So this is a two-part presentation.
Welcome, everyone. I'm glad to be here today. This is a two-part session. This one is on efficient JavaScript, talking about the web development tools that we have available to us now to create widgets using JavaScript and FileMaker. Next month, when I'm there, I want to help get your computer set up to use these tools, if it's not already set up, to use these tools so that you can create widgets and then move on to learning how to work with JavaScript and FileMaker. So talk more about that later. But this is our topic today, is efficient JavaScript. A little bit about me, just a quick, I always need to do this. My company is Integrating Magic. I went on my own actually 3 years ago, last Friday, right after Thanksgiving. Integrating Magic just celebrated its 3rd anniversary. It is designed, all I do is help people learn about JavaScript in FileMaker. I build widgets for people. I am building web apps a lot, actually, recently now. I've got 4 that I'm working on right now that use FileMaker as a backend, but have a cache in the middle, and then using, building a full web app. JSNFM is also a community that I'm, nurturing and trying to get moving. We got almost 400 members, so I really like that. And, people, I think some people here are members, but it's at community.jsnfm.com, and its sole purpose, it's free and open to everyone. Its sole purpose is to be a site for knowing how to work with JavaScript and FileMaker effectively, efficiently, and with community support. We have weekly office hours where we talk every week about JSNFM. People bring problems, what they've discovered, what they're working on. And then I also try to educate a little bit of some JSNFM topic. So that is the community. I'm really happy about it, proud of it. It's going strong. I need to keep on nurturing it, but it's there. I have a YouTube channel too, where I post snippets from the office hours, so it's all available for the FileMaker developer. Our focus today is on efficient JavaScript. I like this topic because it shows the problem. We all know the problem when we're working with JavaScript in FileMaker, and it provides what I feel is the most efficient solution. So just as a quick reminder, what we can do with JavaScript in FileMaker is infinite. It's amazing. It is there to solve problems, and we can do a lot with it. There's not much anymore that we can't do with JavaScript inside of FileMaker. There's a whole question about when should we employ it. I'm not interested in that today. I'm interested in the fact that we can do it and then how to do that efficiently. So here's just 4 examples that I've built recently. Top left is a photo gallery that's much better than the add-on that I built 5 years ago now that's in there. On the top right, there's a diagram where it's for a conference setup of a booth, so people can order items and then drag them over and then submit that. And the bottom is a pivot table. That's my pivot table 2.0 from the first one that I built many years ago. And then that one is not. That is not any JavaScript thing. So the problem is that when we work with JavaScript, especially in FileMaker, it starts to be inefficient. JavaScript for FileMaker developers seems unattainable. It's a whole nother language. Writing it is difficult. Working with it currently in FileMaker is difficult. And we just don't have much time to learn something new. So that's definitely a problem, and it's something that my community is there to address, at least the first 2, and actually the 3rd one too. So I'm here to help with this problem, and we'll focus today on the writing part today. When it comes to working with JavaScript in FileMaker or anything, we as FileMaker developers have resorted to all sorts of things. I was the first one to do this, not the first one. I was one to do this in my career where I'd find a demo file of some JavaScript widget, and then I would just try to force it into my file. The add-ons are there, which are a great starter point, and they show the capabilities of add-ons, but there's not a whole lot you can do with them after that. I created a demo file, the JS, what is it called? What was it called? Oh my gosh, it just escaped my head. When I was at Soliant, I put together 45 widgets into a FileMaker file and then built an elaborate system to let you extract all the code that was stored in fields and then substitution calculations. And that could work. But that is not none of these are efficient because it takes a lot of time to get it to work in your system, and it's hard to customize it and make it work for you. When it comes to the efficiencies, we as FileMaker developers or any kind of developer have to think about what are we doing in terms of our time, in terms of the technique, and how can we make this expand to other parts of our apps or to other clients and such. We need to find ways to be efficient when working with JavaScript in these areas. I do not want people to spend a lot of time building widgets. I want people to build widgets. I want people to know how to do it and use them. I just don't want them to have to spend a lot of time. So these areas we need to find some efficiencies in. These happen to be also our inefficiencies when we are picking methods, when we are using what I would consider outdated methods of working with JavaScript in FileMaker. Our time can go, we can spend hours and hours on this. The techniques are, as I said, outdated and clunky, and the scalability of it just gets really bad. If you want to create a complex widget, it's going to be very inefficient if you continue to use methods that are maybe outdated. But let's see, let's skip over that. So when we work with JavaScript and FileMaker, our main tasks in this environment, in this setup, is to be able to write some code, some JavaScript. We need to store the code somewhere. We need to load it into the web viewer. And ultimately, we need to get data into the web viewer. We need to do all of these things. And all of these things take, there's lots of steps. There's steps to each one of these. So we need to solve these problems. We need to be able to do this efficiently. When we work with JavaScript, when we work with HTML inside of a web viewer, we need to understand that a web viewer requires one string of code. We can't send it multiple files. We can link to a server, a server where our code is hosted, but we have to give it one string. We have to either give it a valid URL or we have to give it a valid HTML document. We have to make sure that all the code is accessible to the web viewer. That's what I was meaning by we can't give it multiple files. People have tried many ways to export code onto someone's machine. It just becomes clunky. It becomes tough to work with. And then, of course, we deal with this factor of, is our FileMaker file allowed to reach the internet, or is it locked down in some security? So we have to deal with all of these things. So working efficiently in JavaScript means that that's really small, that we have to learn how to write code efficiently. We have to learn how to store it and access it. And we have to learn how to test it and use it efficiently. So that's what I'm going to skip over this. So that's what this is about learning how to overcome writing inefficiencies, learn how to overcome testing or debugging inefficiencies, and learning how to store and access it efficiently and not be inefficient at this. Here's an example of a great starting point for HTML and using a web viewer. And this can be fine. If we just want to display some text in a web viewer with some better formatting, and if we want to have a simple button on our web viewer that will do something, then we can get away with this. Over on the left there, I have the code, the HTML document written in a FileMaker field. It could be in a text object as well, but it's in a field. The button there could run a function. Now that we have FileMaker 19 and higher, we have the perform script, the FileMaker.perform script JavaScript function. This could work, but if you want to build anything that is probably above this, you're going to run into inefficiencies and you're going to run into stumbling blocks a lot. Here's an example. Before FileMaker 19, I built this for clients, and I know people use it out there. I've gotten contacted many times about updating this. This is how I would originally do it, and this is how I think a lot of FileMaker developers work, because we are FileMaker developers first. We know how to work with fields. So we put all of the code from all of the libraries that this pivot table requires, we put that into 7 or 8 or 9 fields there. Then we have a function that we got from the documentation that we put into another field that will run this thing. We have some data that we maybe put into a field or a global field or a global variable. And finally, in order to make all of this work, we have this huge substitution thing going on. This is how it is typically done. I know I championed this back in 2016, 17. I spoke on this at my first DevCon in 2017. This is a legitimate way to do it, but this gets really inefficient really fast because you have all of this stuff to manage. You have all of this stuff to care for in order for that one little pivot table at the bottom in the web viewer to work. I'm not saying it's not wrong. I'm saying it is efficient in 2024. This was fine in 2016, 17, but to me, it's inefficient in 2024. If you're just using like a chart library like Chart.js and it's one library, it's not a big deal to stick it into a field and then move on. You got to know how to do that. You got to know where to get the library, and you got to know how to then write the function on the right there. But handling a pivot table like this with all of its complexities, it was pretty tough to make this work. And of course, if we're writing JavaScript, like on the right side, that function, if we write JavaScript inside of that field, we could make a mistake very easily and we will not know it. I would spend hours trying to figure out my mistake when it was just a missing comma in that text field over there, right? So this is doable. It still runs. That pivot table works. And I have people that use it just fine. They put data into a field. There's substitution there in that second field where the star data is. That works just fine, but it does limit us. And when it comes to maintaining it and dealing with it, writing it, updating it, it's very inefficient. Here it is in all its glory. This is an HTML document that is put into a field or the web viewer, and all those substitution happens with all of the fields, like the pivot CSS placeholder is substituted out with a calculation to put in the text from one of those fields over there on the left. So again, it works. It's just really tough to work with. I spent 3 or 4 years doing this, but I have since found more efficient methods, and that's what today is about. Okay. So the way we can become more efficient is by using the tools of the web developer trade. The web developers use a proper code editor. They use a development server. They use something that will bundle the code, that will minify it, that will compile it together into what is needed for a web server to serve it to us. So that's what web developers use all their day. And we can now, as FileMaker developers, do that as well. We can use a proper code editor when we write JavaScript code. We can use a development server to view the results in a web viewer. We are writing the code in VS Code or some other code editor, but we're seeing it update live in the web viewer that's inside of a FileMaker app. And we can use the bundler tool to package it up for FileMaker to give us that one string of text which is a valid HTML document that gets put into the web viewer. So it's my stance that we use the web developer tools to work as efficiently as possible with JavaScript inside of FileMaker. And we can do that. Here's how we use those modern tools. And I'm going to demonstrate this in real time with you as well in just a few minutes here. But if we are able to use these, when we employ these web developer tools, we are able to use the web viewer exactly like it is used on the web. We can use the web viewer like you would use a browser to view, to manipulate, to display, to calculate, whatever you need to do. We can take as many files as we need, as many dependencies or JavaScript libraries as we need, and we can make them work inside the web viewer, including sound, images, video. It's tough to do. It's a little bit more tough to do, but we can do it very easily in this mode. We can view the results, we can debug it, we can easily see where the problem is in our code when we use these tools. The last two are really interesting to me because, and I talk about this a lot in my community, we can take one code base and we can use it many times in our app. We can take a data tables library, for example, and if we are using these web tools efficiently, we can employ that one data table code base 20 times on our app to replace all of our list views and all of our portals that are slow and need some performance boost. And we can take the same data tables widget. We can say, all right, I did this for client A. I'm going to now use it in client B's file to give them a beautiful table that they can sort and do some type ahead filtering. We can more easily do this if we're using these, as we use these web tools, these modern tools. So that's what I want to demonstrate here. I'm gonna walk through my process for this. I'm gonna show you the web developer tools that I use every single day. Dennis and Paul and others here and Walter are part of my course that teaches about this. And this is what I talk about in my community. So today we're going to do this. I'm going to do what some people consider a lot, and there are quite a few steps here. So I just want to prepare you for the steps. And then as I'm transitioning to my screen here, we'll see if you have any thoughts or questions. I'm going to start by creating the environment for a widget. I'm going to build a data table, or I'm going to build a widget that will display data from FileMaker inside of the web viewer. And so I'm going to first start by creating the environment. Then I'm going to install a JavaScript library from their documentation. I'm going to set this widget up to work inside of the web viewer. I'm going to configure it to have columns and to have certain features that I'm interested in. Then I'm going to work on getting data from FileMaker, so I'm not just using sample data. And finally, when I'm done, I'm going to deploy the widget to the FileMaker file so that it can be used by everybody who accesses the file. Okay? This is a lot of steps. I'm going to go through it quickly and in about 20 minutes. And so I'm just going to give you the brief overview. Next month, when we meet again, we'll set up your computer to do this, and then we'll practice it at least, once, so you start to understand the steps. Okay? So that's a lot, but it's just my belief that we can use the web developer tools to be more efficient. And I always encourage people to move past working with fields and calculations, because it's just much more efficient to get it set up this way, the way that I'm going to show you. And it makes our development lives easier. So, and I'm not even a web developer. I'm barely a web developer. But I use these tools to create widgets every day. All right, so let's transition over there. See if you have any thoughts or questions first. When you create widgets, are you still that are used for FileMaker? Do you find putting code into fields to be cumbersome, or is it just something you're used to and you're fine with? Anybody have any thoughts?
I avoid it because it's too cumbersome. It's just horrendous.
Yeah.
I think in the past where we've done it, Jeremy, is really driven more by the need to either lock down the code base or, in a situation where we've got a system that may not have outside access. So some of those constraints are special circumstances, if you're in a real secured environment. But I think all things being equal, it sure is nice to not have to do it that way for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's what it was called. Web viewer integrations. I forgot my own file name. So this is what I have shown people and advocated for and championed a lot, but it comes with all these fields, and I worked really hard on making. I know you're not going to be able to see FileMaker perfectly, but this calculation, not that one. This calculation is long and it's tricky to deal with, and so this was a good way to do it back then, but now there are better ways. So I love this file. It's my first one that I put together, but if I could keep people away from using this, I would gladly do that. So, all right. So I'm going to walk through this process. I'm going to do this in 20 minutes, and I'm going to create a table. I'm going to use this JavaScript library tabulator, which has some great examples of pushing data from records into a table that has all of the built-in features to make all of this work. And as you're looking at this, I know a lot of you are familiar with data tables or other table libraries. These libraries are built specifically to handle these features that people just take for granted when they work with tables. We as FileMaker developers would have a lot of work to do if we built individual column sorting or type ahead features or whatnot. But these just come automatically with these libraries. So that's what I'm going to use here. I'll walk through the process. I will say that Dennis reminded me, because I do this 3 times a day, I have this down pat. I have my own little shortcuts in this. It will go fast here, but as you start using it more, and if you adopt this method, it'll become second nature. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the widget set up, and I just use some raycast shortcuts to change directory into a particular folder where I want these to go. Now I have to grab the entire environment that I have for us FileMaker developers to write JavaScript efficiently. This JS dev environment, I call it, employs all of the efficiencies that I talked about that web developers use. So I'm going to type npx. This command right here will go to the internet and find a development environment that I have for us, and it will bring it down onto my machine. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to call this tab table Dallas. I'll just call that. So then it asks me, do I want to describe this some way? Who's the author? What's the version? What kind of widget am I going to make here? I'm just going to make a plain JavaScript widget, but I could get far up and do some React work, but I'm not going to here. And this question is asking me, which file is it going to go to? What is the file's name? Normally, I would hit this. I would tell it the client file name, but for now, I'll just use the FileMaker file that comes with it. And I'll say yes to that. And now it's downloading my environment. It's called the JS Dev environment. And so now I'll open up into that. And I'll open it up into VS Code. All right. So this environment comes with everything we as FileMaker developers need to start to create a widget. I'm going to start to create a widget here. Eventually, I will transfer it to a client file. That's not the scope of this talk right now, but it's easy enough to do that. This FileMaker file has all of the scripts that I need. Well, we won't go over them too much because it's probably blurry where you're seeing it. I'm just going to know that this file, JSDev, is everything that we need to start working. The repository, the project that I have here, over here on the left, contains some index files, some index.js files, some CSS files. And what it's set up to do is when I start up a dev server, npm start, this web view, this code base right here is now set so that the web viewer can read it and respond to any changes that I make. If I come in here and I say, build something amazing, and I add 3 or 4 more exclamation points, it might be hard to see, but that's exactly what happened here. Let me try to zoom in on this. Web viewers don't do good with zooming, but it seems to be okay. So anyway, so these two are now connected. That is how this becomes efficient, because I can see in FileMaker exactly how it's going to look. And then eventually I can use FileMaker data. All right. So I'll set this aside. I'll keep this open. This is my normal process where I have FileMaker on the left and the code base on the right. And now I'm going to start to do my work. I lost my tabulator. So the way that I work with JavaScript libraries is I just go to the documentation and I read through how to install it. There's a lot of ways to install it. The way of putting this code base into fields is not the way. I'm going to use this npm process that will allow me to install tabulator tables into this project. So again, this is a web developer tool to be able to bring libraries into my project that I need to make things work. So over here in VS Code, I'll stop the server from running and paste. Oh, that didn't work. I don't know why that didn't work. Oh, I didn't copy it. I'll just say npm install tabulator tables. npm install tabulator tables. Let's see. Did I spell it right? Here, let me copy this. There we go. There we go. All right. So now I have this whole library, everything that will make this work. I have it in my project. It is put into this field or into this folder called Node Modules. It's down here at the bottom, tabulator tables. And it's now listed as a dependency in my project. Tabulator tables right here. It is now listed as a dependency. So when I get ready to deploy this, everything that I'm using in this library will be packaged up into one string, put into a single FileMaker field, so that then the web viewer can read from that. Okay, so that was the first step. I don't need to do any CDNs or anything like that. All I need to do is I just need to follow the next steps. The next thing I'm going to do is set up my JavaScript file to have the tabulator tables library ready to work. So in my index.js, I'm going to clear all this starter code. And at the top, I'll write import tabulator full from tabulator tables. AI and just type ahead does a great job of helping me find everything. This import process means that I'm able to import the entire library. And now when I use it down below, it's just going to work. I don't have to worry about where this stuff is. It just comes in. And again, this is a web developer doesn't really worry about where it comes in. They just know when they import it that it's now accessible to use. And let's see, I'm going to need to import some CSS. That's a little bit annoying, but I have to import some CSS. Well, yeah, I'll import the CSS. So in my HTML tag, I'm going to find the CSS that came with the library. It's in the dist folder, CSS. I'll just pick this one right here, copy the path and say add import, and then paste that path in. Okay. I don't expect you to have this all memorized by the time. I just want you to see the efficiency of this. Okay. I got 11 minutes left. So stop. I need to stop. All right. So now I'm going to go to the quick start and find some sample code. Okay. So here's some sample code over here. I'm going to grab this code here, this table data. I always start by just grabbing the sample data or sample code. Update this. So now we've got some sample data in here. And then I'm going to copy all of this stuff. This is all the function that will make it work. This tabulator function takes in a couple items. It takes in a div element where it's going to be rendered, and then it takes in some options. So I'll just copy that into my code base, change this to const. Var is a old keyword that we really don't want to use anymore. Okay. So now I've got some sample data in here, and I've got some JavaScript code. And if I rerun this, if I need to start up my server, npm start. When I rerun this, let's see here, make sure something. Oh, you know what? I haven't changed my HTML. So it's supposed to be placed into a div called example table. So I'm going to set that example table div up, remove all this stuff. Div ID equals example table. There we go. Now when I run this, still getting an error. So let's see what the error is. Can't find variable tabulator tables. Oh, okay. I need to do that. There we go. Okay. So now I have this table installed. Now I'm using everything that the library gives me. I'm using, that, and it can draw some nice bars there. I've got it all set for me, and I'm ready to now work with real data. Okay. I'm going fast. I'll stop here and see if you have a question about this. If you have a specific detail question, then I'll be happy to answer it, but it may be too far in the weeds for our time together here. I'm going to adjust the height of that to be 600. So now I've got that. And I want this width of this column just to be natural. There we go. Okay, good. So now I see it. Now I just need to get data from FileMaker. So there's a way to do that. I need to have FileMaker load the widget, load the code inside of the web viewer, and then go fetch some data and then stuff it into the web viewer. The web viewer, the code inside of the web viewer needs to be able to listen for FileMaker telling it, hey, I have some data. I want you to run a function with this data set. I want you to start using it. So to do that, everything that is running, that is generating the table, I'm going to surround into a function called window.loadTable. And it's going to be a function. It's going to get some JSON from FileMaker, and it's going to eventually use that JSON inside of the app, inside of the table. So I've got this function called loadTable. That needs to be triggered by FileMaker in my load widget script. There's a function here. Again, I'm sorry if you can't see it, called load. There's a function here, a function variable that I'm going to set up as called loadTable. This loadTable function will run this script down here on line 33, where it says perform JavaScript in a web viewer, will trigger that function to run, which is this function, which will cause everything to work. So let's run that. Nothing's changed, but now JavaScript FileMaker is controlling when this function runs and when the table gets loaded, because this script right here has a script step, perform JavaScript in a web viewer, and it is naming this function as the one to run. I hope you understand that pattern, but this is a great pattern of FileMaker in JavaScript. Give the function name, use that function name in the perform JavaScript in a web viewer, and set that function up to be ready to render the table. Okay. So now I need to get the data in. I have in my JSDev file, I have some sample data customers that I'm going to be using. There's 206 records. And I'm going to also use a script called get data from customers that will use the execute data API script step to go fetch the data and return it back to the to the main script. Again, if you can't see it, I'm sorry, but this script will use the execute data API, and the data gets collected, and eventually it will get sent back to FileMaker. So let me use that. My load widget script has a section called get data. I'm going to just say, I want you to use this function instead. This whole load widget script step has a lot of tasks. It loads the HTML with the code. It goes and fetches the data, and then it pushes the data in down at the bottom here. Again, if you can't see, I apologize. So that's set. And now all that data will come into this function via this JSON variable. So if we console log this, we'll see the data coming in. I'm going to skip over all the details, but just know that that's what's going to happen. I'll show that here. Load widget. When I open up the inspect element, all the data is in there. So now it's almost ready to be used. Okay. So now I connected the real data of FileMaker to the web viewer. Now I just have to finish prepping the data. This data that came in, FileMaker only will send it in as a string. Even though to us it looks like JSON, and it is JSON, when it comes into the web viewer, it's just a string of text. So we have to use a function. This is how I do it. Const object equals JSON.parse JSON, and then const data equals object.data. And then I'll console log that data. So running that produces the same thing. Let's inspect the element. And this time we see the original data that came in, and now we see data that's prepped. Let me make this bigger too. We see data that's prepped for the web viewer. So here's that first record, and it's ready to be put into the table. Right? Okay, so now I've got the data prepped. Now I just need to use it. So the data is that. I'm going to update this variable to be called table data, or just regular data. So the data that came into FileMaker, from FileMaker into the web viewer, is now going to be used. It's not going to work here perfectly because the columns don't match with the data that comes in from FileMaker. So let me update the columns. The first one is company. We'll just do this quick, and we'll say field data dot company. And when I run that, is it company? It's company name. I always forget company name. So I'm just in the documentation, in the options, it tells me define the column from which the first column will come from. Define the path. So field data dot company name. I run that, and now we're getting the data from FileMaker to start populating this. And then let's do street address. So we'll do address, and it's field data dot street address. Okay, save that, reload it, and I did something wrong. ADD. There we go. Okay, so this is a progress bar. I'm going to get rid of that progress formatter option. There we go. So now I'm building this, and just in a couple steps here, I just have a couple more columns to add, but just in a couple steps, I'm able to display real FileMaker data inside of this and make it work. I'll just get rid of these two columns because I don't need those. There we go. So now this is ready. It's not ready, but it's up. It's what I want to build for my client for a particular record. So now I have all this functionality built in. I don't have to worry about it. And what's cool is that none of these fields are calculation fields. These are just strings that just came in. So if I did a complex calculation to get the address for some reason, when it gets to FileMaker, it's just a string. And so when it gets to the web viewer, it's just a string. Okay, so I did that. It looks good. They only wanted these two columns. So now I'm going to deploy this thing to there. Oh, by the way, I didn't even realize I had done this, but this is adjustable, right? I hope you caught that. It's adjustable. So now I want, this looks good. My client is happy with it. Of course, I'm the only one that can see this right now because this web viewer is just listening to this VS Code development server that I've set up, which again is a web developer tool. But now I'm going to deploy this to FileMaker. Normally, a web developer would deploy it to a server somewhere. I use Vercel. People use Amazon. But I don't want to deploy it to there. I want this to be all available for FileMaker. So I'm going to deploy this now to FileMaker. Go down here in the terminal, stop it from running. I'll clear it out, and I'll type in a command: npm run deploy to FM. And when I do this, my VS Code, the project, the development environment will bundle up the code, and then it's going to trigger a FileMaker script to go take that record and take that code and put it into a field, into a record in the HTML table, where all of the code that is ever needed for this project is now stored. So there's nothing for me to do except for you to now access this one field for my web viewer, but everything that I need. So last step, ask my load widget script to go find this widget using just a quick find, a quick open up a new window, find it, and let's see that work. I'll turn off the development mode, turn off VS Code, and run this. And so now the code is embedded into FileMaker. The data is obviously in FileMaker, and now anybody who accesses this layout can now use this widget in that amount of time. So I was able to, in 20 minutes, again, I did it pretty quickly, and I'm pretty fast at this. I was able to deploy at least a basic idea, a basic table into my client's app in just under 20 minutes, under 30 minutes. And that's what this development environment does. This development environment is set up to use the web developer tools, to use FileMaker tools to help us create a widget as efficiently as possible, so that then our clients can start using it, and their problems can be solved. They can sort by whichever field that they're interested in, because that's what they asked for. Okay, so that's a lot. I understand that, but these are the efficient tools that we FileMaker developers can use to create widgets for our clients to solve problems. This is my preferred method. In my community, we talk a lot about this. Where is the data? Where is the code stored? Is it stored in a field? Is it stored in an insert text variable? Is it a script step? Is it stored in a global variable? Is it stored on the server? Ultimately, none of that matters. We just need to get the code somehow that the web viewer can reach. I like having it in a table in an HTML field, but the development environment is flexible enough that it can be put elsewhere as well. So, but that's it. That's what we as FileMaker developers can use to be as efficient as possible with our coding. I'm not saying this is one step and you're done. The only one step thing that you can do as a FileMaker developer is hire me to build these widgets for you. That was clever. But if you want to do this on your own, and I really encourage you to do that, then this is probably the fewest steps possible that is also the most efficient. Oh, quickly, sorry. Let me make one quick change in VS Code. This is what's cool about my environment, is that if I come in here and the client says, I really do need the city. I'm like, okay, I didn't add the city. I'll come into that repository. I will add that column. Let's see, add the column. I'm just going to copy this one. And I'll say city. Because this is a quick change. Oh, and they want this to be a lot taller. So I'll just update that. All right, so I'm doing that. All I have to do is redeploy this thing, and it will update the original code base. Okay, it says it has been updated. And now I do not have the city. Okay. Thanks, Taylor, for laughing at my mistake. No. No, it's fine. There is one issue sometimes. I just need to do a quick delete. Let's try this. So I did add the column, right? Yep. All right, so let's run that again. And now let's load it. And there we go. So now we have the city. And so now my deployment has been updated. So I love this method, is that I can be reconfiguring it for them, redeploy it, and then let them test it and see if it works. Okay, so be efficient with your JavaScript development by first starting with JavaScript, learning how to work with JavaScript, find ways that it can solve problems for your clients, and pick the number of steps that you want to employ to create these widgets, either one step or 5 or 6 steps. All right, so that is it. Next month, we're going to set up your computers for this, make sure that it has Node.js and Git on it and some other items. And then we'll practice with this environment a couple times so that you start to get the feel for how to work with this. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Is this a single unified tool? Is this a suite of tools? And what are the licensing associated with these?
The development environment itself is free and open, and everything that's part of it is free and open as well. Node.js is a common service. Git is a common service that a lot of web developers have on their machines. So there is no licensing or anything about this. It's just I made it. What my intention was to take what I learned from Todd when I worked with him and drill it down to what an average FileMaker developer, what we can work with on a daily basis. So that's what this is. And it's made for us FileMaker developers.
And at the point that you were integrating let's go get the data from FileMaker, is it equally easy in a hybrid environment to go get that data from a different database backend?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a script that went to fetch the data. The only caveat is that I'm using the execute data API script step here, and that only works for the file that the script is run in. But we FileMaker developers know how to overcome that limitation simply. So yeah, if you have data in a data separated file and your interface has the web viewer, just call a script over there and use perform script on server to fetch the data and return it. So yeah, getting data is not the problem. We FileMaker developers know thousands of ways. Gabe is here. He uses the execute SQL statement that's formatted to return it in JSON. You can do a find. There's tons of ways. So yeah, I would encourage you to join the community if you're not, because we will ease you into this. Mark is here on Teams who didn't know anything about this stuff. He knew a little bit of JavaScript, but he's been a convert. I have people that have hired me to build them widgets. They learn this and then they stop hiring me to build them widgets, which is okay. But, hey, Jeremy, you could do both. How about do both? That's what's good about this. So, Paul, did you have a question?
Hey, Jeremy, we have a question from one of our viewers on LinkedIn Live. Mercedes Bakali asks, sorry to bother, but if I can throw this out there, I have built multiple JavaScript components, which I use on web viewers in WebDirect. One of the biggest issues I have is web viewers JavaScript failing to execute function FileMaker.perform script after a while during a session. The only thing that can be done is ask users to relog in. I've tried whatnot, but still have the same issue. Don't know if you have any response or comment on that.
I don't at the moment. I don't think I've ever seen that issue. It's very specific to maybe a particular file or something. It's worth investigating, but I've never heard that before where it just stops working. The only reason it would stop working, I think, is if the web viewer is not active or it lost its code, that's the only reason I could think that it's just not working. So, hey, join the community, come on in, ask that question, and we have 400 people. Many of them are helpful in finding solutions.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Yeah, as a general rule, anything that works in the web viewer in FileMaker works pretty much the same in WebDirect. There's a couple of little bits you have to put at the start of the string, but effectively, when it runs in a web viewer, it runs in an iframe and it behaves almost identically as it would do an embedded web viewer outside of any FileMaker WebDirect bugs.
I hope I've at least opened up, swayed some minds, or at least, wiggled in there a little bit. We're all used to using the calculations and the substitutions, but I'm Gabe is a great example of. I think you've converted a little bit, right? With your own stubbornness of I'm going to do it my way, right? Right, Gabe?
Yeah. I think one of the slight differences between the implementation, the way Jeremy and I do it is, Jeremy, the simplest way is to store that calculated the result of the build, the Java the node build in a field, which is fine, and that stores it in a field. It's a super easy way to kind of get it out. There is another slightly more complex way where you can save that in an insert text script step, which just allows that code to live inside of a FileMaker script, outside of the data of the system. But effectively, the process is the same way. It's just a different place to store that that calculated HTML and JavaScript code for the widget.
So yeah, this is what we can do now, and I encourage you to give it a try. I have a couple sites as documentation and that talks about this a little bit more. JS&FM is a site that I have that talks about this. I'll show it quick. This documents the whole environment, why I use this, and how to set it up and all this stuff. So this is a good one, a good resource. And then of course the community is a great place to hear from all of us who are using JavaScript. All right. Well, thank you for hearing from me, and I love talking about this. My business only focuses on the web viewer and trainings, so I'm very passionate about this one little object inside of the FileMaker platform. I don't care about server. I don't care about execute data API or execute script, execute SQL or transactions. All I care about is working with this web viewer. So
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. I will say he didn't mention it much, but he does do trainings on this. I paid for him with one of the trainings. It was very useful. If you want a little more hands-on, you could also sign up for his trainings on it. But he's doing a lot of what he does in the trainings is what he's going to go through with us, hand-holding us next month, where we're going to actually try to get it on our computer. And remember, bring your laptops next month, and we'll get a lot done. But his community is really growing, so and the thing that you get the power of, he's just showing a basic table and a widget, but there's all kinds of JavaScript libraries out there that do particularly dashboardy type things. And if your clients are looking for things that are well beyond what you're going to get in a FileMaker layout, there's all kinds of amazing libraries, and you use the same technique of copying those libraries in to just display it and interact with it in different ways. And so while what he showed us was just basically, the rows and columns and a little table that could be used to do all these really other cool things that are out there. So anyway, thank you, Jeremy, and I look forward to next month, and hopefully we'll all get a little more vested in this. And have a great holiday season, everybody.
Bye-bye.